is the perfect summer day to go out in a topless XKE. Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving this 1968 Jaguar XKE, the E-Type. It's powered by a 260 horsepower inline six, 4.2 liters. The earlier cars got the 3.8. In a Moss box, this still has a 4-speed, but first gear is synchronized and it's a little more forgiving. Now, we've driven so many E-Types on the channel, and I'm really fortunate to have been able to compare them. Some have incredible restoration history. They look nearly perfect. Some have $500,000 of restoration into them, in fact, and the receipts show insane amounts of money, no expenses spared. But those aren't necessarily the best driving cars. And this 68, I believe, is a single owner, or at least a single family owned car. And this might be one of the best driving XKEs I've ever seen. And the body has some little love marks on it. There's a couple little things. There's some paint. There's this, there's that. But I'll tell you, you get behind the wheel of this thing and you'll want one. You'll want this one, and you can teach someone how to drive a stick on this pretty darn easily. There's the Mass State Police, not looking for us because we'll not be doing any super speeding today in the Jag. However, these are probably the best British sports cars of the era. Now, I've actually got these twin electric fans running right now, which is very cool. And we'll close the bonnet for you so you can see all the goods. But the issues with Jags typically are cooling, and they leak. You do have to really keep up with the maintenance, but if you do enough, if you do just enough, they really do reward you. And if you go back and drive something like an MGB or an MGA or a TR6 and drive it back to back with an E-Type, you will just see where all the money goes in these Jags. This is such a spaceship in comparison to some of what we consider the iconic everyman's sports cars from Britain. So let's get a plate on it. Let's go for a lovely drive. They're a blast, and it's fun because it's basically the Viper of Britain of the 60s. I guess the Viper is maybe the E-Type of America, but it is fun to open the hood of these things because you can just see everything. These are big engines. They feel substantial. And it's odd because I never really thought about it until recently. But before we get out there, let me show you what's gluing us to the road. It's a 185 section tire on a 15-inch wire wheel. Knockoffs, of course, you need a special tool to get those off. They're not really the hammer type. You can't really get onto that. But either way, you've got disc brakes all around, which you cannot see in the rears. When you come back here, well, that's just suspension. You get the twin springs and dampers and all the goods, but the brakes are actually inboard, similar to that of a Bizzarini or an ESO or an Aston Martin of the time. The door handles, barely made for humans. That's always fun. And this one has this beautiful black interior, pretty simple, but check out this steering wheel. In fact, I just had a guy come and look at the car while I was shooting photos of it, and he said, dude, I bet that steering wheel alone is worth like 10 grand. Also, we'll secure our hood. What I love about this car is because it's not some fancy new restoration, I can actually close this. When there's new seals on these hoods, sometimes you can't get them to close properly, and you actually need someone to lean on it, so then the other guy can come in and do that. Now, these are maybe a little looser than they need to be, but that's just fine. This is not going anywhere. Even if those popped up on the highway, it might just bounce a little bit, but you're not going to lose your hood. And around back, unfortunately, I killed it with the dealer plate, but this exhaust looks fantastic, jutting out from under the car. It's got a lot of ground clearance, so these are pretty easy to drive anywhere. I'm telling you, when these things run well, they're fantastic. All the controls in this one are weighted perfectly, although I suppose maybe not the horn. Is there a horn? Maybe there's a horn button. I forget. Sometimes I get a little lost and forget things. It's been a little while since I've driven a Jag. If it was cold, we'd use this choke here and pop it up. Older cars have kind of a lever that goes up and down, but it's always nice because it gives you very clear instructions on pulled out, it's cold, hot, and run. And they warm up pretty darn quick. This is a 4-speed, so typical H pattern, first, second, third, fourth, no dog leg, reverse, over, and back next to second gear, into first, and away we go. I'm telling you, you could teach someone how to drive a stick on one of these, a good one at least. This is so easy. The 4.2 is loaded with torque everywhere, and it's silky smooth. Not a bad turning radius. The big surprise of these XKEs for me is how sharply they turn in. They don't look like they should be as agile as they are. Or when you look under the hood, you see this big engine, this immense powertrain, and yet it just, you almost don't feel the weight of it when you're driving it, especially in the front end. It's such a delicate, light steering wheel, and yet you can just push it on these little skinny tires, and it never lets you down. This is what an E-Type is supposed to feel like. For the sound, it's always tempting to keep the revs up and just sit in second or third gear, depending on where you're going. But this has so much low-end torque that, I mean, I could kind of comfortably sit in fourth. That's why I think this kind of has Viper vibes to it. I don't think I realized how much Viper you feel in one of these.
I'm gonna take the earmuffs off so I give you the raw sound. There's gonna be a little wind noise, but it's worth it when we can get this reflecting off of that. Good is that? suspension. I mean, you can actually go over modern streets in this car. And this is why the Jag XKE, I think, especially these like 4.2s, might be like the perfect classic cars, because they're so beautiful you're going to want to look at it in your garage. They're so beautiful everyone's going to want to look at it while it's moving, talk to you when you get to a red light. But they're easy to drive, but that doesn't sacrifice being rewarding to drive. Just because it's not difficult to shift gears and steer it and everything doesn't mean it's boring. It's incredibly rewarding dynamically. This is that rare breed. The thing you've got to look out for on these cars is that one XKE is not like the other. They all are a little quirky, a little different. You might see one that looks like the perfect car. You've got to drive it. You've got to get experience behind the wheel to understand if it's the car you want, because over the years people have tinkered, and tinkering for some may not be what you would have done. And I've driven these cars where the throttle spring is so ridiculously heavy it's actually hard to drive. I've driven them where the throttle spring is too light and then you're just wonky and crazy on the revs. I've driven them where they pop out of gear. I've driven them where the brakes are bad. I've driven them where the alignments are so insane that they barely move. And I've driven them where you kind of just always feel like you're behind the car. But I've also driven them where they're perfect and they are exactly what you imagine. It's a meet your hero moment and you got everything you wanted out of it. And I think that's what this car is. Sure, she's got some love marks and some aftermarket paint and some little things like that. But as a driver, I don't know that I've actually ever been as satisfied behind the wheel of an XKE. And this is it. I love that it's got these twin electric fans. I have not been staring at my water temp, which has been holding homeostasis, which is really nice. It's just doing its thing. It looks like it's reading a little high. It's fine. She's happy. But man, I am going to go bring this thing back to Bond Group. Not going to take any chances with a Forester and a recumbent bike. Got to be patient with people, you know? It's okay. Life's fine. Especially if you don't hit anybody on a bike. Look at this Aussie. Good dog. Looks just like my sister's dog, Zelda. So anyway, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of my drive home in this Jag XKE, the Series 1.5. A+ motor vehicle. It's going to be on Bring a Trailer. Go check it out. See if you'd like one. These are also a really good buy right now because, I don't know, prices are just kind of dismal. And you're able to get, I mean, they're still expensive for normal people, but like in the world of classic cars, they're not doing Porsche things. And it's one of those cars where it is a buyer's market because if someone has put the correct mechanical love and care into them, or even a restoration, they, unfortunately for them, pretty much never get their money back. You, as the buyer, get to reap the benefits, and you really don't have to pay for the restoration. You just get to buy a pretty darn good car. So that'll do it. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.